All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Chad Chambers producing, and we are glad to be here on this hump day, a jam-packed hump day, as we have Adam Hadwin, pro golfer, Wichita resident, had a great weekend, got a great event coming up. He's going to join us here in just a little bit in our next segment. Also have Wichita State head men's basketball coach Paul Mills on, top of the hour. Got a bone to pick with Coach Mills, apparently an Astro fan, so we'll get to the bottom of that. All kinds of good stuff coming up for you today. We've got baseball, the Rangers and the Astros, Game 3 back in Arlington tonight. We've got a little football to begin to preview, get some thoughts from Chris Kleiman on his quarterback situation yesterday. So we'll bring you the latest on that as well. Your calls to the IHOP hotline, it's always available for you, 869-1240. IHOP hotline, how about the new Nashville hot chicken and waffles, golden brown Belgian waffle topped with 4 crispy chicken strips tossed in a spicy Nashville hot sauce. We'll have some giveaways today as well. HTO, some Wichita Thunder hockey tickets. Here we go. It is a jam-packed Thursday. How are you, Tommy?
I'm good. I know you probably had an evening last night to kind of catch your breath a little bit. You didn't have the Rangers on, so you didn't have to really worry about getting too stressed out. But I mean, they've got a 2-0 lead going into.
I don't want to hear that.
So you got to feel pretty good.
I don't want to hear that talk. There's okay. One game at a time. One game at a time. Both of those games were centimeters away from the bullpens blowing it. I'll tell you too. I don't love days off when your team is hot and won 7 in a row. I'd rather just play every day at that point, because at any point, this team this year, I don't know how much Rangers baseball people have paid attention to. They can go ice cold. Their September was 6 wins in a row, 6 losses in a row, 6 wins in a row, 4 losses in a row in playoffs. I mean, it was crazy. But something like that. They're very streaky, to say the least. So the quicker they can get there, Max Scherzer will go after injury. He's admittedly I don't even know what's going to happen tonight. So that's reassuring.
Yeah. Hey, at least they have a 2-game lead rather than being down to
totally
throwing.
This was a perfect scenario because Scherzer, you wanted to get him in Game 3, and you wanted to get him with as little pressure as possible. And the other good part of that is their other 2 starters that they likely won't pitch, at least they won't pitch both of them as starters, can quickly come in as a reliever in Dane Dunning and Heaney, who have been starters for them all year long. So they'll be in good shape in that regard. Hopefully Scherzer has something in the tank. He's a gamer, so we'll see. Rangers are slightly favored in that game tonight. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Tommy, a topic came up yesterday. I don't even know how it came up. We'll set this up for people to chime in the rest of the show. By the way, you can chime in by calling that IHOP hotline. You can also leave your comments on our video streams, which are available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also comment to us there on X and leave us your chatter there to the Sports Daily page, to either one of our personal pages. So I don't, again, I'm not real sure how this came up yesterday, but basically the premise came up that I am totally fine having soup for a meal. Like no issue whatsoever. In fact, I eat soup for a meal all the time. I'm eating soup for a meal every day this week. I made a huge Instapot thing over on Sunday. This is what I do on Sundays. I cook a bunch of food. That way I have an excuse to watch football, and then I eat it all week. So I eat soup for a meal all the time. I have absolutely no issue going to a restaurant and ordering soup as a meal, but apparently that ruffles Tommy's feathers a little bit. And in the chatter last night, there's this group of people, these cavemen, who think that somehow that compromises a man card to order a bowl of soup. Right? They make two sizes on the menu for a reason: a cup and a bowl, to get a bowl of soup for a meal.
There are very few things on this planet that I feel as strongly about as I do this. Soup is absolutely not a meal. It's a great appetizer. It's a good starter. It's even a good side dish, but it's not your meal. And if I'm going to have some soup, I'm going to say that's great. That's delicious. Thank you for the soup. Now, what am I having for dinner? Because it's not a meal. And I feel bad for your stomach that you're just going to eat soup every single day this week. Because if I were you, I would be looking around saying, what else can I eat? Because this is clearly not enough.
So I also have the metabolism of a hummingbird. Like, I have to eat all the time. So it doesn't really matter what I eat. I'm going to be eating within a couple hours again. I don't understand. So are you classifying like chili, stew, like a beef stew, or like everything's all the same here?
It gets a little muddy. And I think that's where this discussion came up, is that the KFH and the folks at Odyssey, they're having a chili cook-off this week. And we've been on a bunch of emails about the chili cook-off, and you were saying that there are chili cook-offs everywhere. It's
I have four this week, 4 chili cook-offs.
And I wholeheartedly believe, and I like chili, don't get me wrong. My wife makes really, really good chili, and I'm going to give her credit for that. But a bowl of chili, in my mind, is not a meal. I've been telling her that for years. Now, if you take that chili and you put it on hot dogs, then it's a meal. A chili dog is a meal. A bowl of chili is not.
Look, here's the other part of it for me, and it gets more into the restaurant. I think you're absolutely out of your mind for eating it at home. Like, eating it at home as a meal is 100%. I grew up in a family of 7. We ate lots of soup and stew and like whatever mom could make a whole lot of, and then we could eat it for like 6 days. So at a restaurant, I think, is where you took even more offense. That I am absolutely willing, if a place has good soup, to order soup as the meal with whatever free bread they have, or whatever it is. And that's a deep-rooted thing in, like, I could order a $25 entree, or I could order a $12 bowl of soup and get like 2 extra beers with the meal, same spending. To me, that's a no-brainer.
But I told you this yesterday. It's the same thing. Like, you could do that with a side of broccoli or a side of vegetables and say, I'm just going to order broccoli as my meal.
Could.
It doesn't make it a meal. It doesn't mean it's a meal just because you're trying to have
what makes it a meal is how big is the plate of broccoli? How big is the bowl of stew? Comparing a side of broccoli to a big bowl of stew or soup or whatever, like, that's not the same thing.
But I think it does raise a question, because somebody on Twitter responded to our conversation last night and said, you can make anything a meal if you eat enough of it. And my counter to that is, are you really eating soup or are you drinking soup?
It depends on what it is. Tomato soup, it's kind of drinking.
If you're drinking soup, then I'm not really sure that, like,
tomato soup, but you're eating stew. Like, you're eating chili. Like, you get a straw and see if it goes down. That's how you can tell the difference.
Walk up to the counter at a Wendy's and ask them for a chili combo meal. They don't have it. You can't do it.
I have absolutely eaten just Wendy's chili as a meal.
I'm not saying that you haven't. I'm saying that it's not an option. Like, next to the Baconator meal, you can't get a chili you can get a side of chili. You can get that as one of the side dishes, but you can't order it as a combo meal.
Because you don't need to. You could just get a big cup of chili and be good to go.
It doesn't make it a meal, though.
it makes it a meal. Meal is in the eye of the beholder. Here's the other
Okay.
thing. Again, you're ignoring my point. And this comes from my grandpa. My grandpa had sayings for days, like great, like life skill sayings. One of my favorites: why ruin a $20 buzz with a $10 hamburger? Like if I'm out at a restaurant with friends and, doing all that and we're having a good time and we're having drinks and whatever, like why would I ruin that good time with a $10 hamburger when I'm just going to sit there and feel stuffed to my gills? I can have a bowl of soup, get a couple bit, and I'm good. Like I'm in a comfort zone at that point.
It's like I told you this yesterday. I'm going to relentlessly make fun of you the next time we hang out. If we go to dinner I get a ribeye,
it doesn't offend me.
And you get a bowl of soup for your meal.
Tommy, I could go to a good Mexican restaurant and have chips and salsa and nothing else and be perfectly happy. Chips and
great.
salsa.
That doesn't mean it's a meal.
Salsa and beer would be maybe like if I was in jail and had like a last meal, I'd be like, give me like a bowl of chips and salsa and a beer and I'm good. Like that's one of my favorite meals.
It's a delicious snack.
There is.
It's a delicious snack. It doesn't make it a meal.
All right, so that sets the table for that. We'll just get that out of the way. We've got comments coming in. Feel free to comment on our streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, however it is you want to watch. You can also leave us your comments on Twitter. We'll sort of set the table with that as we make our way through today, and we can get back and forth on it. I think this is ridiculous. I can eat whatever I want for a meal, including delicious soup. Let's get to Adam Hadwin when we come back. We'll have Adam on. Wichita resident now from Canada. I wonder what he thinks about soup. It's cold up there. Maybe they have probably some good soup. They have ketchup chips. I can ask him about that. I learned about ketchup chips, and they're amazing, by the way.
You ever had poutine?
No.
It's a great side dish.
That is a meal. Listen,
no,
poutine is a meal.
Oh, my God.
Poutine is like covered in gravy and all kinds of stuff. It's nuts. What else? Oh, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in Toronto covering the Royals. Like everyone tried to get me poutine, and I'm like, guys, like no.
So good.
Give me the ketchup potato chips, and that's good for me. All right, we'll come back. Adam Hadwin joins the show next.
crazy. 316-869-1240. This is your home for sports. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily. Happy to be joined here by Adam Hadwin, Wichita resident now, native of Canada, second last week in Vegas on the PGA Tour. Adam, welcome into the show for the first time. Glad to have you on, man.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
We'll have Adam here talk about a great event coming up. He and his wife have an amazing foundation. We want to talk about the tour. We want to talk about that event. Adam, the topic of the first 15 minutes of this show here, and you're, Canadian. I got to know, I'm catching strays here because I have no issue eating soup for a meal, like a good big bowl of soup for a meal. I'm fine. Tommy thinks that's ridiculous. Where would that stand north of the border?
I mean, my personal opinion on it would be I'm taking Tommy on this one. It's a little bit ridiculous.
Let's go.
I think.
God,
I think it's pretty hard to find a bowl of soup, even a bowl of chili that could fill you up for a meal.
So here, let me put this way. So I just made a big. It's called like chicken pot pie soup. It's got carrots and potatoes and chicken and like a cream sauce. So if I put that on a plate and ate it, would it count as a meal? Are you docking it because it comes in a bowl? Like that's what's in that soup. You don't think that's a meal?
I mean, do you have to have a bread bowl to go with it?
No. I eat it with a spoon, but I could eat it with a fork. Is it a spoon versus fork thing? Like I don't understand.
No, it's just I think it just comes down to it's just not filling enough. It's just not. I mean, unless you're, I don't know. I'm saying no. My wife would disagree with me, though. My wife would say absolutely yes. Soup is a meal. So
I'm not loving the fact that the wives are on my side here.
My wife and I got into it this morning before I left the house because of this exact debate, because she is totally on team soup. So Adam, your wife, my wife, completely on the same page with this.
Yeah,
I'm going to need.
I think it's for different reasons, obviously. And I think it comes down to the same thing, just different sides of the argument. And that's probably just how full you are versus how many calories you're taking in.
Adam, I don't know if you were listening. So the other part of this is there's an ulterior motive. Like if I'm at a restaurant and I order the soup, it means I get 2 more beers with my meal. That's another part of this. Like there's strategy involved with soup as a meal too.
But see, here's the counter argument to that. Well, is it really a meal though? Because you're filling yourself up with something else. So
exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah. Listen. This is America, and I will eat soup for a meal if I want to eat soup for a meal.
I will fight for your right to have soup as a meal, though. Yeah.
That's right. Now, if everybody's wives could stop agreeing with me and some of the men out there could back me up, that'd be great. All right, Adam, let's talk about first the tour. And I think people are aware of this now, but you're here, man. You guys are here. You're Wichita people. We love that. It's awesome. Second last week in Vegas, what kind of week is that for you guys? Like, how does that work? You're a family man now. Like you got to get everybody out there. When it comes down like that, like what's that week like on tour?
We've gotten pretty used to it. My wife and daughter don't travel every single week. So I was out there by myself till Friday. Jessica came in Friday night. We had to get together. But it's pretty standard. It's a work week. I had some friends in town as well, so we had a couple meals with them. But otherwise, just back and forth from the hotel to the golf course, playing. Playing well. Although you kind of run on adrenaline and you have this high of competing, it takes a little bit more out of you. Shots matter a lot more, and so you got to get a lot of rest and get prepared for the next day.
I want to ask you about a couple of shots on the back nine on Sunday, Adam, in the Shriners Open. So number 13, you had a great putt for a birdie. It was awesome to watch the ball just kind of roll around the rim and then drop into the cup. Walk me through how you felt in that moment as you kind of watched that putt circle around and then ultimately drop for birdie.
Yeah, that was a crazy birdie and a completely unexpected one. I had hit it long left on that hole, which was basically dead. And I hit about as good of a pitch shot as I could. I was coming up. I was probably 5-6 feet below the green. Had to come up and over. Everything was working away for me, and I did well just to give myself a chance to make a putt. And then the ball was tracking. It might have been a little firm, but it was tracking. And as it got close to the hole, I started to raise my putter as if it was going to go in, and started to kind of walk it in a little bit. And then it took that little bit of a left right at the very end and caught the hole. And I kind of paused, and it did the full 360 before going in. So that was a huge putt because Tom was going to make birdie, and that kind of kept a little bit of momentum with me, and I could stay within one of him.
What are you thinking when you get to number 16, Adam? And, I know that's the turning point of the final round for you. That second shot, it was when you're watching it on TV. You can't see every angle and all of that, but obviously your body language said it all as soon as the ball came off the club and ultimately ended up in the water, but you made a good recovery shot, had a chance for par. Emotionally, what's going through your mind as all of that's happening on 16?
Yeah, Tom hit a good shot on the green. Nothing crazy, but gave himself a chance for 3. I knew I had an opportunity to at least put it closer than him, and then maybe be able to pick up that shot if he doesn't make a long one. And I just hit a terrible golf shot. Unfortunately, bad golf shots happen, and unfortunately mine was in like prime time, coming down the wire of the back nine. And as soon as I made contact, I knew where it was headed. And like you said, you could tell by my facial expression. I started walking. I didn't really want to watch it finish.
Sure.
And so, but yeah, I had to get refocused right away. I needed to hit a good shot to try and save par. That way, even if he makes birdie, I'm still only 2 back with 2 to play, and I still have a fighting chance. And man, there was a range of emotions on that green when he left his first putt, outside of where I hit my wedge shot to for par. And then he missed again, and then he missed, thinking, oh my gosh, I can leave this hole still 1 down after hitting it in the water, which was unfathomable when I hit the shot. So, of course I missed and he made, and I left 2 down, but, a wild swing. And I think, I was probably more disappointed with a putt at that point than I was with the water ball. Cause all things considered, I still had a chance to leave there 1 down and a good chance to win the golf tournament. And I let that slip away.
Well, and then you jump up to number 18 and that putt you made for birdie to get solo second. Again, you could tell the emotion, obviously the fist pump and all of that when that birdie putt dropped. So you finished second by yourself. Walk us through that, how you were feeling in that moment.
Yeah, I think, once missed the putt on 17, so 2 down going in the last. Tom was going to have to do something silly for me to have a chance to win, which he had played solid all day. And once he hit the fairway on 18, it was my shot was pretty much over unless I kind of hold a second shot. And so I wanted to give myself a good look at birdie. And it was more about personal redemption, a point of pride after kind of messing up so badly on 16. I wanted to have at least some consolation leaving the golf tournament and with a birdie on the last, get myself out of that big 2-way tie for second at the time, and come out solo. I felt like I had played well enough all week, not only just to win, that finishing in that big tie just I think would have left a big. The feeling would have stuck, and so it sucks not to win, but there's a small consolation of being able to come out very in the last and breaking out of that tie.
Well, it's a great week, Adam. We were watching and cheering, saw that on the bottom line, watching some college football, and started texting Tommy. I was like, "Oh, whoa, here we go, here we go." Good timing for this, right? And everything. So I want to ask you, Moose Jaw, Canada, in the mix for greatest town names on the planet, Moose Jaw, Canada. I just a quick Google, and there's 3 golf courses there. In one public. Is Moose Jaw where you cut your chops and got to the level of golfer you are now, or did you have to go elsewhere? How does that work?
No, I grew up out west, but I was born in Moose Jaw. We spent a couple years there. We moved around a bunch. My mom worked for Sears, and she was transferred to different stores. But although it's where I was born, and I feel like I get a lot of my roots from and who I am as a person, being a prairie boy. I know you guys can relate to that, being here in Wichita. I feel it's a very similar type of work ethic, and but I grew up out west, about an hour east of Vancouver, a town called Abbotsford, and that's the weather there is a little bit more conducive to playing most of the year, and that's where I grew up playing.
Adam, what's it been like for you spending at least half of your time in Wichita? And I know you guys split your time between Wichita and Scottsdale, Arizona. Your wife is from Wichita. And now that you have a residence here, what's it been like being kind of a transplanted Wichitan?
Yeah, I love it here. My wife grew up in Derby, born and raised. Her whole family still lives there. Like you said, we split time, and I've really enjoyed my time here. I love the people here. I love the pace of life here. Much quieter and slower, and I think it fits who my wife and I are much more than other places. And yeah, it's been great. Golf here is great. Like I said, the people have been great, and I really love coming back here during the off weeks. And I haven't spent winters here yet, so I know those get a little bit tougher, but it's been great. Very, very enjoyable being here since we've started spending so much time here.
So you mentioned, Adam, golf in Wichita is great. What's your favorite golf here? I know that you're traveling all over the world playing golf, but when you are in Wichita and you do get to play, do you have a favorite course? Is there something that you like doing in Wichita, some place you like going?
So I'm a member at Flint Hills National. That's where I've played most of my golf. Sadly, other than the time that I played Crestview, when I played here for the Korn Ferry Tour event back in 2014, I actually haven't played any other golf courses here.
Okay.
So that's next. Yeah, I know that's next on the list, is to get around and start playing some of the other courses. The big one is to get up to Hutch and play Prairie Dunes. That's
great course.
That's on the bucket.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list, and everybody has nothing but good things to say about it. So that'll be next summer. That'll be the big task that I have.
We're transplants too, Adam. Adam Hadwin, PGA Tour, Wichita resident now. My wife and I both from other places. We feel the same way about it here. And I always tell people that are coming in, I'm like, if you like golf, there's like a billion courses here. I don't know why that is, but there's courses everywhere here. So yeah, you'll have to check them out and let us know. I suck at golf. Tommy's pretty good, but so I can't give you much insight. It doesn't matter where I'm playing. It's all the same. There's no fairway wide enough for my game. We'll put it that way.
It takes
Adam,
you guys. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, that's what I don't have. All right, you and your wife have a great event, and that's the reason we have you on here out at Flint Hills. Give us a little bit of backstory about what's coming up and why it is that this event is important to you guys.
Yeah, so back in 2020, actually prior to 2020, we had difficulties having a kid, and so we had to go through the IVF process. And our daughter was born in January of 2020. And as COVID hit, luckily I got to spend a lot more time and we're playing. Got to spend a lot more time at home. And, we were kind of looking at each other, just beyond thankful for what we, for what we had gone through, and to have our daughter. And we also both looked at each other and said it wasn't fair, that because of the position that we're in, we would have done anything to have a child, and it wouldn't have mattered how much it cost or what avenue we had to go down. We would have figured it out. And so we started a foundation in 2020, and basically aimed at, the original intent was to help families have kids. So our initial, what we started with was a grant at the IVF clinic in Arizona that we used. We set it all up ourselves through the attorneys and everything to make sure it was ironclad, but that was kind of our way to start. And it's since grown, which has been great. We now have a partnership and a fund with KU Pediatrics in Wichita here. And that fund is with their genetics department and is used for families that have sort of undiagnosed, unconfirmed repeat pregnancy loss, where the next step may be to check if there's something genetic with either parent that may be causing issues, or once a child is born, even if they have issues that are having difficulty being diagnosed, any sort of genetic testing that may be available to help get a diagnosis that is usually not covered by insurance, that fund will be used for as well. So I'm probably the wrong guy to have on explaining all this. My wife is way better at this than me. But something that we started that means something to us, that we have found as we get this word out and talk about it a little bit more, that so many other people have gone through and dealt with. It's just not very talked about. And it's a difficult thing to share. It's a very personal thing. And so if we can help maybe share our story a little bit and bring more light to it, then, maybe some others will feel more comfortable about it, and sort of raise awareness for something that is extremely common in today's world.
It really is. My wife and I went through IVF as well to have our two boys. And so, as we went through that process and knowing how expensive it is, and we had to go through all the genetic testing and just, we had that same thought also, like, man, there are so many couples out there that I'm sure would love to have kids, but the financial burden is just, it's crazy. And, the fact that a lot of times insurance doesn't cover really any of it, makes it that much more difficult for folks out there that are wanting to have kids. So I definitely, I feel strongly about this. I know the same way that you guys do. And you've got your foundation, which is incredible. The events that are happening this weekend, I know that ticket sales are done for both the event at Topgolf on Sunday and the golf tournament out at Flint Hills on Monday. But if there are people that want to support the foundation, can they donate money? Is there a way that they can still be involved to help out this cause?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is the hadwinfamilyfoundation.org. You'll find all of the information listed there. You'll be able to read our story. You'll be able to hear, I think, from some of our grant recipients that have since gone on to, one of them has gone on to have a baby, which is amazing. And that was my wife's whole goal when we first started this, was if I can help one couple have a baby, then I'll consider it success. And so we've had that happen. We have our third grant recipient, I believe is pregnant right now. And so it's very exciting. It's also exciting to move into doing some other things with this as well. Like, I mentioned the KU Pediatrics bit, but also looking forward to the future of how can we, we have our grants in Arizona. How can we move that here to Kansas potentially? And is there an area that we can start helping out our community here in areas, since we are doing our bulk of our fundraising here in Kansas? But we are looking forward to two very good events. We've had that golf event at Flint Hills for a few years now, and This is the first year for our event at Topgolf. So I think we have over about 120 people coming. We've sold, I think it'd be about 14 days. We've got 20 kids from the first tee coming out, which is an area that I've personally supported for years, just giving back to the golf, and something that's given so much to me. And so it's going to be a really fun day.
All right, Adam. Well, we're looking forward to it. Tommy will be out there with you guys. A great event. We've got it on our radar now moving forward as well for folks that want to get involved with that. Great cause. We're glad to have you here in Wichita and continue to kick some tail on tour there for us, huh?
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Two more, Adam, real quick. Ketchup, potato chips, you on board? And poutine.
Oh, yeah. Ketchup, if you haven't had them, are the greatest things in life. You've got to go the OG Old Dutch if you can get them. Lay's will be a okay second alternate. And then the poutine has to be done right, though, to be good.
Okay, I'll take your word for that. I spent some time up in Toronto with the Royals, and I didn't see any that appeared to be done right. But the ketchup potato chips, man, I'm all in. That stuff was awesome. All right, Adam. Good luck with the event. Tommy will get us a recap once you get through it, and keep winning out there.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
There goes Adam Hadwin. First time of maybe a few here. We'll have him on Sports Daily. Really cool to have the pro athletes here in Wichita with us. They're out there representing. Adam's out there. He's here now with us, with all of us. That's the wrong take on soup as a meal, but, I'm not going to hold that against him. 869-1240. We got comments to get to on that. Well, Paul Mills coming up at the top of the hour. Another something we got to get off our chest, find out why he's an Astros fan, apparently. And we can talk a little Shocker basketball as well now that they're practicing and getting close to game time, actually. So we'll have all of that coming for you in the next hour. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. Tommy, let's give away, in the spirit of Adam's Canadian roots, let's give away some hockey tickets.
Yeah, we are just over 48 hours away from the home opener for the Wichita Thunder at Intrust Bank Arena Friday night. They're taking on the Kansas City Mavericks. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets for you for the home opener this Friday night.
All right, so you can get your hands on those. Call into the IHOP hotline right now. First caller during the break, 869-1240. We'll get that 4-pack of hockey tickets. We'll come back, get you a winner, and continue on Sports Daily. going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, on Sports Daily. If you missed anything with our conversation with Adam Hadwin, pro golfer, you can go back and listen to that for free on the Odyssey app. By the way, speaking of the Odyssey app, if you're looking for more daily baseball coverage, you can check out John Boy Media's Baseball Today, the hottest topics in baseball, Monday through Friday. I got some comments coming in on our soup for a meal discussion. Congratulations to Alex, by the way, for winning Thunder hockey tickets. I just don't understand the judgment on like what you let me eat what I want. And sometimes a good bowl of soup, if it's good, like a good bowl of clam chowder. I've come around to clam chowder late in my life. Give a big old bowl of that. It's plenty of food. Like it's cream based. I mean, come on now.
I want to be very clear about my position on this. I'm not anti-soup. I like soup. There are multiple kinds of soup. I'm not anti-soup.
You just don't like it enough. You just don't like
I don't
it enough.
like it
It's
as
not good
a
enough
meal
for you.
It's not
good
it's
enough.
not a meal. Like, so you can like it all you want. You can have as much of it as you want. It doesn't constitute a meal, a balanced meal. It does not constitute that.
What makes a balanced meal? Bread and French fries?
I mean, I think having multiple different things on a plate.
It's all mixed together. That's the point of soup.
I'm also the guy that I don't like my food touching. I like to have things like I need one of those segmented trays.
We need like that's a
I'm not a
whole
fan of
different
that.
thing.
Not
That's
a fan of that
whole
at all.
different thing. That now we're to the root of the problem here. You're one of those weirdos that like, that ruined that portion of my plate because
You're dang right. You're dang right. It does.
Touched
If
the
my-
beans.
If my I don't know, if I have like canned peaches, if the peach sauce gets into my mashed potatoes, it ruins the mashed potatoes.
Stir that
100%
up
it
there.
does.
Get it all in there together. Just like, what is it? Was it
Gross.
KFC did that famous bowl?
Ugh.
Oh, come on.
Ugh.
Like, give me that. I don't have, like, if I go to a breakfast place, especially, like, if I don't get like a scramble of, like, I just throw it all in there together. Like, if I go to Waffle House, and I know we don't have them here, you just take all of it and just like, just get it all in there together. Maybe that's where I like soup.
I hate the argument of, well, it all goes to the same place. Yeah, but it touches my taste buds first before it goes to that one place.
No, I'm definitely like, if I'm having a burger and fries or a sandwich and chips, for instance, like
That's a
I might as
meal.
well just put those chips right on the sandwich, like put them in there because
But
I
it's
won't
still a
take a
meal.
bite out of one without also taking a bite out of the other most
You
of
have
the
your
time.
main dish, your entree, if you will, and then you have your side dish. That constitutes a meal. A bowl of soup by itself with nothing else around it is not
But
a meal.
inside that bowl of soup is everything you just mentioned. It's just all put together at once.
A bowl of tomato soup is not
That's
everything.
not okay. That's
Chicken
one
noodle
kind
soup
of
doesn't
soup.
put it all together.
But
Vegetable
if you
soup
had
doesn't
but
put it all
okay,
together.
you say chicken noodle doesn't. Okay. So if you had a plate with some noodles in one area, chicken in one area, vegetables in another area, would that be a meal?
Is the majority of that broth? Then no.
The majority of, if you've ever had good chicken noodle soup, isn't broth either. What kind of soup are you
That's a
eating?
meal. There is a big difference between chicken and noodles or chicken and dumplings and then chicken noodle soup. Chicken and noodles is a meal. Chicken noodle soup is not a meal.
So if you put all that same chicken and noodles in a bowl together, add a couple of vegetables and put broth on it, then all of a sudden it's not a meal.
No, it's not.
The exact same amount of food.
If it's broth based, no, it's soup at that point and it's not a meal. You're proving my point.
I'm not. I'm saying you eat the exact same thing, but add broth. Like the exact same thing that you're saying is a meal.
Why would you want to add broth to that?
Because broth is good. Mike agrees with me here clearly. He's chiming in a lot on our YouTube page. Austin, I feel like Austin's getting a little wishy-washy here. First, he says soup's not a meal. I'll disagree on chili. You can't have it one way or the other, Austin. Like it's all or
Is
nothing.
chili
here.
a soup though? Like can we constitute chili?
Is a
as
taco a
soup?
sandwich? Is what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like I don't know.
Or
That's
is
eye of the
chili
beholder stuff.
Is chili a stew at that point?
It's all delicious is what it is, and it doesn't matter. Beef stew is I can hook you up with some beef stew. You won't get up from the table. It's so good and filling. Like I don't understand the point of this. It's just ridiculous. Jad.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this?
I got to go with Jacob, and I'll say this to Tommy. I'll say this. Okay, so you got to say that the soup's got to come with something. Okay, so let's say you have a good tomato bisque, good tomato soup.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Soup.
I love tomato soup.
What goes great with it is the grilled cheese sandwich.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic.
Main dish, side dish.
Yeah, but the main dish is the soup, not the sandwich.
Is it? Because I would argue
Yeah.
the main dish is the grilled cheese.
Nope,
No,
the grilled
with you
cheese
there.
is
So-
the side dish.
No.
Let's get
Yep.
to
No
let's
way.
get to the bottom of these deep-rooted issues for Tommy here. What if, Tommy, I had that bowl of tomato soup and the grilled cheese, and I took that grilled cheese and I broke it apart and put it in the soup? Is it no longer a meal?
Well, I mean, look, I think that number one, why would you do that? You'd have soggy grilled
It'd be
cheese.
delicious. You don't dip your grilled cheese in your tomato soup?
Sure, I do. Yeah, but I don't break it up and just let it sit in there to
I
get
just-
soggy.
Same concept,
Part of the
though.
grilled cheese is the crispy exterior.
But
of
what
the
you're
sandwich.
saying is if I came up with a tomato and grilled cheese soup, that's not a meal. But if they're separated, it becomes a meal. Is the point of what you're trying to say?
Because you have a distinguished main dish and a distinguished side dish. You put it all in a
Same
bowl
exact
together,
amount of
it
food.
doesn't
Same
magically
amount of
just
food.
make it a meal.
It's the same amount of food.
It doesn't matter.
Oh,
If it-
so now my etiquette's not good enough. I get judged because I just like to mix all my
I
food
would-
together.
Well, partially, and also because you're going to just be eating a soggy grilled cheese. At that
I'm
point.
going to tell you this. I will absolutely use the same fork for my salad as my whatever else. Like I'm not manners guy. Like throw it all together. I came from a farm family. You just get it all in there any way you can. Big family. You eat what you can when you can. And again, I'm going to hold to my, and this is the restaurant part. I'll save my space for an extra drink or two.
My wife knows that, like, if she makes dinner and there's like salad, like a side salad with the dinner, I need a separate bowl for the salad. I'm not going to put the salad and the dressing on the same plate as the rest of my meal.
I think we found the issue here, and it has nothing to do with soup. You're a non-food mixer. That's the problem. 869-1240 is the number to call. We talked some golf there, but we've been totally derailed. We're going to talk a little basketball and baseball in the next segment, and sort of both in one a little bit with Wichita State men's basketball coach Paul Mills, the Astros fan apparently. We'll get to the bottom of that, talk some Shockers as they're getting ready to start the season as we roll forward to hour number 2 here on Sports Daily.
And the smaller schools were in Heston. The individual titleist, Margaret Ulrich, a junior at Wichita Collegiate, won the state title by 6 strokes. We'll be talking college football tonight, the weekly edition of the Kansas State Football Coaches Show with head coach Chris Kleiman, 7 o'clock tonight here on KFH. K-State getting ready to host TCU Saturday evening in Manhattan, a game you'll hear right here on KFH. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily here on a Wednesday. If you missed anything from the first hour, including our interview with Wichita resident now, Adam Hadwin, second on tour last week, had a great event and a great event coming up here in Wichita. You can go back and listen to that on the Odyssey app. Joining us now to kick things off in the second hour, Wichita State men's basketball coach Paul Mills. Coach, how are you today?
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. Doing great.
We're going to bounce all over the place here, Coach, and we'll get to the basketball. We've got a couple of things to get to today, including your thoughts on soup as a meal. But before we do any of that, word on the street is you're an Astros fan. Now, I Coach, am a massive Rangers fan, so I had to get you on here because I hate to hear that and wanted to give you the full opportunity to back out of that fandom and jump on the correct train here in the Lone Star State.
Yeah, that's not happening. I grew up in Houston and was an Astros buddy. When I was 6 years old, my dad would take me to the Astrodome, and you know, whether it was Nolan Ryan, Mike Scott, J.R. Richards, I had a ton of fun and enjoyed. I was a much better baseball player than I was basketball. I just love basketball, but I am a big Astros fan.
I don't know. So give me your thoughts on the series, because this rivalry between our teams has become one of the best in baseball. And I think people are getting a sense of that, just a little bit of what's been going on in the division. But I am terrified, even up 2-0 here. I don't know how you feel about the series, but what do you think so far?
Oh, I think Rangers fans should be ecstatic. I mean, yeah, you have comparable records with the Oakland A's just a year ago. And for Houston Astros fans, this is par for the course. I mean, this is our 7th consecutive year. Honest to goodness, I think one of the things that Houston Astros do is they give hope and then they snatch it away. And so I'm glad Rangers fans have some hope, but I'm very confident that that'll soon be snatched away.
Coach, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm a Atlanta Braves fan, and they're, of course, done in the playoffs. But one thing I will say is that I've always been a big Dusty Baker fan, and just what he's done over the course of his career with all the different teams that he's managed. What has he brought to the Astros? You know, it's been honestly, a scandalous few years for Houston, but he's kind of come in there and calmed things down.
I did. I didn't tell many people I was a fan after the 2017 year when it was all uncovered. My daughter, she was like, we need to burn all of these shirts, right? And
She's right.
we didn't. We didn't. But I love Dusty Baker. I mean, whenever you hear Dusty talk, how he just played with Henry Aaron and those stories that he can tell, but he comes from a place where he's with Willie Mays, with Henry Aaron, and his steadiness he's just one of those guys you root for because he's a purist. And Boshi is a tremendous manager, and this is a wonderful series, just even from not only a fan standpoint, but from my perspective, a coach's standpoint. Just how do you handle guys in the moment, and how do you handle the situation with the crowd and the distractions? And Dusty Baker's phenomenal.
He's done a great job. I'll give him that, but we can agree to disagree on this series, and we will. Game 3 tonight, and I can't wait for it. All right, the other thing before we start talking basketball that has come up out of nowhere here today, Coach, and I have no problem having soup as a meal. No issue whatsoever. Go to a restaurant, have a good soup, no problem. Tommy is trying to take me to task and challenge whether that's an acceptable social behavior here. But where are your thoughts on soup as a meal?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the Seinfeld episode, which addresses.
They've literally made a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with Elaine on this. If it's gumbo, that qualifies. If it's tomato soup, that's more of that's kind of an appetizer. Elaine gets into, did you put crackers in it? If you put crackers in it, then it qualifies as a meal. But I don't have a hard stance on this particular issue.
Okay, well, let's talk some hoops here. And I'm glad you brought that up. The greatest television show of all time made an entire episode about this conversation. Let's talk hoops. You guys had Shocker Madness now in the books. You've been through media day of your own and of the conference. We're 11 days away, which just seems insane to me. I'm sure it does to you too. But what is sort of the vibe? What's the gut feel on things as we're within 2 weeks here, the start of the season?
It's a realization that, we're not going to go another week without playing basketball until hopefully April. But every week from here on out is booked, and we'll be ready to go. I do believe that players get tired of seeing one another, and we're ready to see a different color uniform on the other side. And these are work in progress, trying to figure out lineups, trying to figure out style, all of those things, trying to hone in on the things that you believe that you can be good at. So I'm anxious to play and get a different opponent out there and kind of get an idea just about where we are, what we're good at, and then how do we kind of elevate whatever it is we're good at to eventually be elite. So it is a fun time of year, specifically for our staff, just trying to figure out what's the best way to play in order to put the best team on the court.
As you're counting down the days until the season starts, how important was that trip to Greece for your team? I know not only getting the basketball experience and working together, playing together as a team, but the bonding and the camaraderie building and all of that. How essential do you think, when we look back at the end of this season and everything that has happened as it comes up, how important was that trip to Greece?
No doubt it was pretty significant just in regards to progress. How you think, more importantly, the practices, but how you think you should be able to play, and then whether it's executing, is it just a tweak in order to play that specific style, or do we need to play different? The utilization of lineups and all of that being said, we're much further down the road. We could have probably played a game at the end of our 5th practice this year, simply because of those previous 10. And I'm not telling you we'd have been any good, but we would have known what to do on a baseline OB or a sideline OB or jump ball alignment, basic things that you were able to get out of the way in order to put yourself in a position to be competitive. So that stuff is is extremely helpful. And I go back to your point about just that ability to bond, that ability to really know guys and sit down and eat with them and be with them off the court. You know, we spend so much times in hotels and around each other. And I mean, we're pretty much with each other every day for somewhere between 4 to 6 hours but since practice started the latter part of September up until the end of April. So that gave us a chance to really get to know, and it was tremendously beneficial for our staff.
Paul Mills, head men's basketball coach at Wichita State, joining us. It's been a while since we've had you here, Coach, and I think the last time we asked you what kind or style of play, especially on the offensive end, you guys would install. And you said you needed to see the team. I assume now you've seen them enough to have some idea of the pace at which you want to play. Do you think and look, you weren't here before, it was a much slower pace for Wichita State, but do you expect to, pick that up a little bit here and run pretty heavy?
Yeah, I do expect to run simply because I don't like going against set defenses, and I don't think players do either. And I know, last year's tempo for Wichita State was 230. I really don't know why that is. Was it philosophical? Was it injuries? Was it, just you had bigger guys? I do think we'll play faster. The team I coached last year was 32 in the country in tempo. I don't know that we'll be that, but I'm confident we'll be top 75, top 100 in regards to tempo, simply because I don't enjoy watching slow basketball. And two, we're trying to get an advantage, keep an advantage, and be able to maintain the right shot during that advantage. And I think one of the ways that you're able to get an advantage is not going against a set defense. And that usually happens within the first 7 seconds. And to be honest, we're just trying to find whatever it is the best shot is. But I do think this squad, they're in shape. Done a good job with tempo, and I'm not really too concerned with a laborious style that fans would have to watch. It's just, in essence, becomes a rock fight from a basketball perspective. I don't think we'll be that, simply because of our personnel. Now if I had a whole bunch of 6'8" guys, 6 or 8 of those guys, that may be different. But given the nature of this team and who we are, I definitely consider that we'll be in the top 75 in regards to tempo.
So it's interesting, Coach, that you brought up some of those, metrics there, because you when talking this week at the media day, you brought up how much you utilize KenPom and look at some of that same stuff that we do. Talk about that a little bit. Your use of those, I don't know if we want to call it analytics or whatever, but just those tools that are out there to help you coach. What ways and what things do you think you gain from being able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of things that have been written over the course of time on what allows you to win. And one of the big ones is called the 4 factors, things that rebounding, field goal percentage, defensively and offensively, turnover rate, and then free throws, and so you obviously need to get a high field goal percentage offensively and do the best you can defensively to limit the other team. Rebounding is important, getting to the free throw line or preventing the team getting to the free throw line. And then from a turnover perspective, can you take care of the ball? And then how much havoc can you cause defensively? So all of those things just play a part in it. And I mean, it's pretty intuitive. If you watch basketball, you don't want to give the ball to the other team. So I do pay attention to turnover percentage, like how well are we handling the ball? Where are these turnovers coming from? Why are we committing them? And then at the same time, if you can limit teams to one shot, you're probably going to be pretty good defensively. So how good are our rebounding numbers? Do we do a good job in just hitting people? Is it a lack of physicality? And you're always trying to get those questions answered. But I would tell you that two of the bigger things I pay attention to is offensive efficiency, and that comes a lot down to how well are you taking care of the ball. And then defensively, can you limit the team to one shot? So for me, last year, the team I coached was number 1 in the country at not turning it over, and we were number 4 in the country in securing defensive rebounds. So those being top 5, top 10 in those categories is important to me because I think it translates to winning.
Coach, I know that your obviously the top priority is working with your team and figuring out exactly the best way to run the team. I wonder though, as we look at a bigger picture of the American Conference, there are new teams coming in this season, one of which had a great Cinderella run in the tournament last year, Florida Atlantic. How difficult is it when you've got new teams coming into a conference to be able to not necessarily scout them, but just have a good idea on where your team might be compared to not only the current teams in the conference, but any newcomers that might be coming in?
Yeah, go back to a point you guys made earlier about Dusty and Bruce Bochy. I mean, I remember after the Astros won, Dusty Baker said, "Man, I know Bruce and Bruce knows me." And I think sometimes when you're in a league, you're really familiar with the style of play or what a coach may be trying to exploit in his specific team at that specific year based upon previous years and previous experience. So I do think for me, I come into this a little bit of a disadvantage, and you don't really know the tendencies of certain coaches. But I would tell you with the number of teams entering, 6 teams entering, I think the entire league's going to be that way. I mean, we don't necessarily know that how this coach is going to do. And I think what happens over the course of time is you become very familiar with things that coaches may be trying to do and how to utilize their players. And then from a schematic standpoint, you understand what you're trying to take away, and you can kind of verbalize that much more clearly to your players when you're extremely knowledgeable about that other person. So there's a disadvantage, but it's not just a disadvantage for me. It's kind of a disadvantage for everybody, given that 6 new teams are coming into the league. So we'll see how this plays out, but I can assure you on this end, we'll be really, really prepared. It's one of the things we kind of take tremendous pride in as a staff, and all coaches will be, but it is a little over the top for us in regards to preparation as a staff, just being super knowledgeable about what they may be trying to exploit from a basketball perspective.
Paul Mills, head men's basketball coach at Wichita State, joining us. The Shockers get an exhibition game against Rogers State coming on October 29th. That's a Sunday. The regular season begins against Lipscomb then on November 6th. Coach, I'm curious, and we'll see these guys for ourselves soon enough, but just like as you've come in and you've brought in all these players and there are a couple of returners, what's an example or two of something that has surprised you in a good way about any individual player, like something that's happened or maybe that you didn't expect to see that you're seeing and that you guys are excited about as a staff?
Well, I will tell you that, some of the guys just can they live up to whatever their reputation is. So it is Colby Rogers came in when he transferred here a year ago from Siena as the 62nd best shooter in the country. And I would tell you that every indication is he's going to be a top 70 shooter. Is he shot it well? He puts in the time. Xavier was calling him yesterday. Xavier Bell was calling him yesterday. 7-11 said he's always open. Just throwing the ball. He just finds a way to always be open. And so I will tell you that that's on par. I know Kenny Poto didn't shoot it well a year ago. He was 3 for 29 from 3. And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen a guy who's like, man, I don't see a 10% shooter right now. And he's shooting it at a really high rate. Again, as we scrimmage and play games, we'll kind of find out what's real, but didn't see that in Greece either. So you're just trying to see what's legit and what isn't. And then the athleticism of the new players. Harlan Beverly was on that Final Four team at Miami. He is elite level athleticism. He's a great passer. He's a tremendous ball handler. But because you just saw him on TV, you didn't know if these things were actually true up close and watching him go through it. So, of Quincy Ballard being healthy. I mean, I'm not disappointed about anything, but I will tell you that what you had in your mind at who these guys are. They're exactly that. Dalen Rignall, the transfer from Missouri State, was an All-American at the junior college level. Initially went to Georgia, was known as a three-point shooter and a rebounder, and I would tell you he's a lead at both of them. But again, is this just in practice or is this in games? That's one of the exciting things about being able to play games is you get to see this stuff for real.
Well, we get to see it for real very soon, Coach. We appreciate the time. We're going to do this more often, especially as we get into this thing, because we all cannot wait for the basketball season to start. Hopefully fill up Coke Arena and get that Shocker basketball going once again. I'd wish you good luck to your Astros tonight. I absolutely wouldn't mean it, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of throwing Scherzer out there tonight. That's pretty impressive. I won't have as much confidence if we go down 3-0, but I am happy for that to have teams in that division, Texas and the Astros, kind of is a testimony not only to both clubs. The Rangers have just made huge strides in this one year, and it should be a really good series.
I think you're being too nice. I know you hate the Rangers. You can say it. It's okay. Like
I really
it's all right.
don't hate the Rangers. I just love the Astros. I really don't care who they're playing.
Yeah, okay. All right, Coach. Well, good luck on the season. We'll see it soon enough. Less than 2 weeks away from that exhibition game. Can't wait for it. We appreciate the time.
Sounds great. Thank you.
There goes Paul Mills, head coach, Wichita State men's basketball. Good stuff there. I thought there's a lot of interesting stuff there. When we look at it, Tommy, fascinated by the close attention paid to some of the same things we try to do, right? When we're trying to stack teams up, Ken Palm, whatever it is, it will be it will look, I think, from all indications, it's going to look very different than it has for a long time, Tommy, in Coke Arena. Like the pace, all of these things, outside of the year with Landry Shamet and Connor Frankamp and Austin Reeves, that year where they really picked it up and were scoring a ton of points. We've seen the same brand for a while, so this will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think between having obviously a new coach and Coach Mills and a new style with the new look of the conference, I think there's going to be it's going to be
talk about
unpredictable.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no way to even assess it right now.
There are thoughts all over the map on what's going to happen this year, and it's all guesswork at this point, which makes it fun, and we'll see it soon enough. We'll get into that, of course, over the next 11 days or so until we get to that exhibition opener. We're going to come back. More Sports Daily. We've talked Zero football for the first time maybe ever in the fall, so we'll have that for you. We've got an HTO giveaway to get to a little bit. We'll dig a little bit deeper into the ALCS Game 3 tonight, maybe look back a little bit at a snooze fest last night in the NLCS. It's all coming on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Lots of fun and good stuff coming today. Our soup discussion, which you can chime in on the IHOP hotline, by the way, 869-1240. How about the new Nashville hot chicken and waffles, golden brown Belgian waffle topped with 4 crispy chicken strips tossed in spicy Nashville hot sauce. 869-1240 is that
Now
number to
that's a
call.
meal.
That's a
That is
meal.
absolutely a meal.
That's a meal. You can't. I don't think you can get that into a soup. Although chicken and waffle soup, yeah, you couldn't. There wouldn't be a good liquid component to that. I don't think syrup, but that is not going to work for anybody. All right, let's talk, Tommy, a little bit of Major League Baseball here. So you've got 2 things happening here, both both series at 2-0. But I think they're 2 very different series. The Phillies feel a little more dominant to me, and I know the Rangers are 7-0 to start the postseason, but they have not been like the Rangers have had to hang on and sort of buckle up at the end of these games. I think if you're looking at it and say which team is in more danger, the Diamondbacks or the Astros, I think the answer appears to be pretty clearly the Diamondbacks, right? The Astros have been there so many times, and so has Philly at this point. But I don't know. I think that, and maybe it's just the nervous fan in me. But man, I'm not like I think this Rangers Astros series is so far from over. And now the Rangers are in a good spot because they get to Scherzer with a 2-0 lead. Because I don't know what to expect out of Scherzer, and certainly 3-0 is very different than 2-0. But it's not like a time of comfort at all to me in that series if you watched it play out and if you've watched the Rangers this year.
I think I agree with you. I think the Diamondbacks are in much more peril right now than the Astros are. The Astros are a more experienced team. The Diamondbacks have not been here before, and they've gotten punched in the mouth, let's be honest, by the Philadelphia Phillies through the first couple of games. So I think the Astros, while neither team is really in a good spot right now, I think that the Astros, if you're going to choose one of them to potentially make a comeback, it's probably going to be the Astros over the Diamondbacks.
Well, and remember, too, you could potentially, in theory and in probability, if it went 7 games, you could get 2 more games from Verlander if you're Houston. All right, let's go to the IHOP hotline here. Earl is on the line. Earl wants to join Soup Daily here. Thank you, Jad, for that one. Earl, what's up? Soup, a meal, no meal? Where do you stand on this?
Hold on. When you look at a menu, right? Soup and salad are considered what? Appetizer before a meal, correct?
Thank you.
But
it depends on the menu.
Hold on. No, I'm sorry. You're wrong. But there is a caveat. You are allowed, like a tortilla soup is a meal. There is a variance, but I have to ask you, what differentiates stew from soup? I mean,
I
both
don't know.
have ingredients and all that. So in that regard, a tortilla soup is more like tortilla stew if you really cut down to the ingredients.
Tommy's trying to make this case for chili, Earl. Chili.
What about chili? Chili goes on nachos.
Thank you. Chili is a great topping.
Now, hang on a minute, because we talk about variances, and we could spend another 2 hours on this. I am a beans in the chili, like throw the kitchen sink at chili. If you're talking about just a meat chili, you know what I mean? Then okay, I could see that as more of a topping, and I probably agree with you. But I'm definitely team like chili with beans. You could put some corn in there, some meat, like whatever you want to throw in that chili. So then it becomes more of a stew.
But we don't call it chili stew. We just call it chili, right? We call it meat or dinty more stew. I mean, how is that a stew and not a soup with just a bunch of canned stuff? I guess the point is and back to the Seinfeld deal, and so soup for you. But we will say this. It's the ingredients that make the difference. An appetizer is a salad or a soup. A meal can be, I mean, if you have you had a good quality tortilla soup?
Yes,
Either of you?
Of course I have.
It's good.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
Okay. you'd be hard pressed to not feel like that's not a meal.
I agree.
I mean, you got cornbread with it and the whole shooting match. So I don't know how tortilla soup is a soup and not a stew, but I would say this. You get just chicken noodles, man, that's an appetizer. That's not a meal. I mean, it's a meal if you're sick and you don't want to eat much and you don't want to vomit up a bunch. So that could be the guidelines. Is it a meal if, you avoid it because you don't want to vomit too much? You can consider it that way.
Google says that soups tend to use more liquid than stews. But
correct,
for whatever that's worth. Again, it doesn't matter.
I mean, that makes sense. And toppings typically are not liquid in saturated, right? You don't want to you have a nice bowl of nachos. You don't want to drip chicken soup on it, right? Even tomato soup, you don't want to put those on nachos. So you got to differentiate the categories of soup versus stew versus chili. And we'll come to a conclusion at some point.
The whole point of this, Earl, was trying to get a man card revoked for being totally willing, able, and happy to order whatever it is, soup, stew, chili, whatever, as a meal. And I'm totally good doing that.
Yeah,
I think the issue. I want to point out here really quickly, real quick. I want to point out that I think that it also depends upon at what point in the day it's being consumed. For example, dinner is considered the principal meal of the day, right? Like I think that's kind of the way that it is. Whereas if you were to have soup and salad for lunch, okay, that might be a little bit more acceptable in the time of day you're consuming it, as opposed to a larger, heftier meal at dinner time.
Well, these are valid points, but to the man card thing, come on, man. That's pretty antiquated darn thought there. So if a guy orders a blue Hawaiian for a drink as opposed to a margarita, does he lose his man card because it's a blue Hawaiian?
No. Listen, I don't have this rule sheet in front of me. I'll order soup all day, every day.
Well, and that's good. And by golly, in most places you still have that right of freedom evaporating all around us.
Here's a perfect. This is a perfect example here. So one of my favorite fast casual restaurants, Olive Garden. I like Olive Garden a lot. It's a good place to go. When you go there, they offer you what? Unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks. So it's combined. Soup is a part of it. Soup is not the main star. It's not, hey, come on in and you can do it. You can do unlimited soup if you would like, but that's not how it's marketed. It's marketed as soup, salad, and breadsticks all in one combination, meaning that the entire ensemble is a meal, not just the soup.
And most restaurants you go to, if you're going to get a good piece of meat, they'll ask you, do you want the soup of the day or a salad up front? Hence the qualification of soup in that regard as an appetizer.
But that's a cup of soup. That's a cup of soup, not a bowl of soup.
Well, no. They don't put you a cup on the table. You have a bowl of soup in that regard.
You know what I'm saying. On the portions, there's the difference between cup and bowl, right? It's like, do you want a side salad or a full salad?
Hey, ramen noodles as a soup was a meal for a lot of college students.
Darn right.
Maybe that's where you're at. But, hey, soup is good. Tortilla soup is by far the best of all the soups. But you guys, very creative, very interesting, and I appreciate you letting me be involved.
I appreciate the wisdom and insight there, Earl. Tommy, is salad acceptable as a meal to you?
For lunch, yeah, I'll have a salad for a meal.
Okay. Just checking. By the way, lunch is a far better time to eat until you explode than dinner. Like, to me, do you know how old we are, Tommy? You eat that much food at dinner, you're wrecked for like the next whole day. Right? What is this? Like, what are we talking about? Welcome into Sports Daily here. It's just, Mike's chiming in saying, well, he can eat dessert for dinner if he wants to. You go for it, Mike.
Well, now we're getting way out of hand here.
And do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Mine is, like if I'm going to fill up and be over gorged, then I'm going to choose different ways to do it. So soup makes a lot of sense for me. And that's okay. That's for me.
And I told you this yesterday. That's probably the reason why You have a size 20 waist and I have a size 36 waist.
I do consider the health aspects of eating soup. I do. That is certainly a factor for me because I don't exercise. Here's my philosophy on all that. It's like diet and exercise, right? We keep getting lectured about diet and exercise. And so like I have really high cholesterol and it was like I talked to one of my brothers who's very into health. He's written a book, like all this stuff. And he's kind of like laying it all out for me. And I'm like, yeah, but like, let's really lay this out. Like what needs to happen here? And so the choices roll out there of like lifestyle choices that you make. And like, I'm not going to exercise every day. Like I go for a walk. That's my exercise. I've never been a weightlifting guy. I don't know if you can tell that. I know that will surprise a lot of people. But like, it's so much easier to just control what I eat. Like I'll just eat something a little better, and then I don't have to do that other stuff.
I'll make a little concession for you here. If you decide that you want to eat soup as a meal for the rest of your life, okay, cool. You are more than welcome to. I'm all about your freedom to be able to make that decision if you want to. Now, once you start eating your soup at 4:30 in the afternoon and watching Jeopardy and then going to bed at 5:30, then at that point, I'm going to have a little bit of an issue with you.
I can check two of those three boxes. My wife and I make fun of each other because we got like no issue eating at 4:30, 5 o'clock, like none. Now, I don't do that. Well, I mean, sometimes I do. I love Jeopardy and game shows, but I am a night owl. I can't make myself go to bed early. So I'm hanging on by a thread there on that to survival of, not. I'm an old soul anyway, so that wouldn't bother me either way. But if you haven't had like the early bird special, it's not bad. It's not bad. Again, like I got the metabolism of a hummingbird, and my wife kind of does too. Like we both eat all the time, so it is like that's one of the reasons. Like soup, great. I can eat soup now, but then I get to eat again in like 2 or 3 hours. Like that, if I go eat like a big old breakfast, Tommy, I don't like that fills me up a lot of the day. But I got to eat. Like I'm a snacker. A snack nut is what I call my wife, a snack nut, like always snacking on something. Again, welcome into Sports Daily, everybody. Let's give away, speaking of delicious things, let's give away some HTO. We'll come back, and I want to talk about what Chris Kleiman had to say yesterday about his quarterback situation there in Manhattan. So let's give away some HTO first, though. We'll do a free iced tea and a free coffee. You can get the iced tea at any of the Wichita locations, both east and west, also in Derby. And you can try out the brew house options, which is all the coffee drinks at the east location of Wichita and at the Derby location as well. Jad will get us a winner to our first caller. Check it out. Lots of fun fall flavors there at HTO. We'll come back, talk a little K-State football next. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Congratulations to Scott for winning some HTO iced tea and coffee. Glad to be able to do that for you, Scott. Congratulations to our Thunder hockey ticket giveaway winner, also Alex, going there in the first hour. We'll continue to do that. Tommy, let's talk a little bit about K-State football. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here, Chad Chambers producing, getting us the winners to those contests. So Chris Kleiman came out. Well, on Monday, let's go back a step further. Monday, K-State lists the quarterback on the depth chart as Will Howard or Avery Johnson. Chris Kleiman yesterday was asked about it, said he had no idea. Was further asked about it, of course, because that's what needs to happen. And he just basically his reasoning is it's Tuesday. We haven't made the game plan. I couldn't even guess what the percentage of one over the other would be, 50-50, 80-20, whatever it is. They won't know until they get through the game plan. I think there's probably some truth to that. I also think he's not going to tell us, because I think that a part of the strategy here for what K-State's doing is to keep the opposing defense guessing too. Like, again, this is a part of the reason I am totally okay easing this thing through for now. And let me say too, like, I say that with an asterisk that could literally change in one game, right? Like something like if we see Will Howard struggle, or if we see Avery Johnson clearly reading defenses and pushing the ball down the field through the air, then I'm totally fine making the switch. But right now, I don't think it's a necessity. And right now, I think they can use a little of the confusion to their advantage against an opposing defense. The change is coming. Like, it's coming to Avery Johnson. Everybody knows that. But I do think there is some caution that can be used and almost used to your advantage. And we're not going to know. Like, in college, they don't have to tell us this stuff. It's why we never know what's going to happen with Jalen Daniels in any given week. It's why we're never going to know this until they make a full change, which, if I had to put money on it, Tommy, I would guess outside of injury or just an absolute catastrophe on the field from Will Howard, that won't change the rest of the year. I think probably we're going to see this the rest of the way. And K-State did this last year, right? Adrian Martinez was always there, and the threat of him running was always there. And I thought that was something that K-State did a nice job with. They just get to do it again.
I think that there are advantages clearly to doing this, but I also think you have to be really careful with it, because there are some confidence things that go into it, not just between Will Howard and Avery Johnson. I think both of those guys are pretty solid, but the entire team, like, there are unquestioned leadership styles and capabilities that a quarterback brings to the table. And I think that those are things that are overlooked a lot. Like, you look at just like, who's going to be the better player? Who's going to have the most success? Throw for the most touchdowns, run for the most touchdowns, complete the most passes, all of that. But there's timing, there's communication, there's a trust factor, there's leadership, there's all of these different attributes. It's more important at the quarterback position than any other position on that football field. And if you're going back and forth from one quarterback to another, it's hard to build that synergy. I do understand the athleticism and how that plays into it, and that can be a positive, but you got to be really careful if you're going to go a 2-quarterback system.
Yeah, I agree. And I know it's a 2-quarterback system, but I think it's a little bit different than some 2-quarterback systems we've seen in places. Like, sometimes those exist because there's not really a good option or a clear option or anything like that. I don't view this quite the same way. I think there are 2 really good options. I think that it's too early to bail on what we saw from Howard last year. And I think it's too early to just assume, for a team that can play its way into a Big 12 championship game, that Avery Johnson is 100% for sure ready to go into a pass-heavy game script. He will be able to do that. Avery Johnson is one of the most gifted throwers in the country, but you still have to see it and do it. The other advantage K-State has in this is, by all accounts, Will Howard will be an incredible teammate through this and will help Avery Johnson. Already has, by the way. And so that's the other factor too, is I don't think you're going to get that component in here. I think both of these guys will fully embrace this. And that helps too. And again, the play on the field can make this go one way or the other really fast, because K-State can play its way into a Big 12 championship game. The team doesn't have the luxury to just, in my opinion, pull the trigger one way or the other and like go to Avery while they're still playing for what they need to. Otherwise, they would, Tommy. I mean, like they can be as loyal to Will Howard as they want to, but jobs are on the line here. If K-State unequivocally thought Avery Johnson was better right now than Will Howard, they would just play Avery Johnson. They would. But the guys that see this every day, oh yeah, they would. Yes. Chris Kleiman, like they're playing for a Big 12 championship, Tommy. Like if they sat there, you owe it to and I know you owe a lot of loyalty to Will Howard, but you've got 90 other guys. Well, but you got 90 other guys on the roster you owe it to also to do everything that you can do to win games. And so if it was clear and obvious that this was the no doubt about it best option, and we may think it is, right, because of what we see on the field, but we don't see what happens at practice. We don't see what's happening in quarterback meetings. We don't know, what's happening on the sidelines when you go in and a quarterback coach sits them down and says, okay, what did we see here? Like, we don't know any of that. If it was unequivocal, K-State would just make the change. But I don't think it is that yet. It could be this week. Like it could happen immediately, but I don't think we're there yet. I would guess. Here's what I'll guess this weekend is that we see Avery Johnson take more snaps than Will Howard, but I think it'll be real close to 50-50. That's just a guess. It's a total guess because we have to see what TCU does defensively. And again, this is why I like this idea, at least in the short term. Adjust to whatever TCU thinks it's going to do defensively. If they're going to, defend the pass downfield, great, put in Avery. If they're going to load the box to stop him running, great, put in Will Howard for a minute. Like, it's great. I love it. I think it's a big advantage for K-State.
The good thing about it is that they do have, pretty capable quarterbacks here, right? And so, if Will Howard continues to struggle in the way that he has, I think really overall this season, but especially the last couple of weeks, they do have obviously a really good option. Like there are a lot of teams out there, they don't have another option. Like they got to stick with their quarterback, good or bad. And that's a tough predicament to be in. So, clearly there are advantages to this. I just think you have to really be careful about just the overall team aspect, the communication, the trust factor, all those different intangibles that ultimately come down to which guy is leading that offense.
You got to trust the culture on the team, and I think by all accounts, K-State's is great. The other thing is, too, the defense for K-State right now is not good at all. That's going to put pressure on the quarterback, and that may be another reason why they're like, let's not totally abandon Will Howard because he's been through it, right? Like the defense is going to put pressure on the quarterback because they're not doing a good job right now of keeping points off the board. So the quarterback has that much more pressure. Like you don't get to be a game manager. You're going to have to score. And that's different, right? That's different than when you play with a great defense and you can take more chances and a turnover doesn't kill you because your defense is great. Right now, a turnover will kill you because the defense hasn't played well. They could. I still think it could be there, but I don't think this is going to be an elite defense. They lost too many guys to the draft and they've had too many injuries. Like it's not reasonable to expect that, but it is fascinating. And man, I love seeing Avery Johnson have success. I had so many people from back home that are Tech fans. Most of my family roots for Tech. Everyone's texting me like, who is this guy? I'm like, guys, I'm just telling you. He's the best high school football player I've ever seen, and I watched Breece Hall closely. So if that tells you anything. 869-1240, we'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap here, Sports Daily.
It's game time.
right, everybody. Thanks for joining in the conversation. It's been fun. Soup fans, Team Soup, Team Not. You can go back and listen to any of the discussion or join in anytime on social media, and we'll get to those. Jim Rome at 11, Bob and Jeff 2 to 4. You've got the Chris Kleiman radio show on KFH, 7 o'clock. He'll certainly talk more about, about that quarterback situation. We'll come back tomorrow. Chelsea Messenger, Tim Fitzgerald join the show. Looking forward to it. For Tommy Castor and Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you then.